Angelina Jolie is here since winning an Oscar for her performance in Girl Interrupted. She has managed to maintain her status as one of Hollywood's best young actors with the popular Tomb Raider film. She has also traveled the world as one of the United Nations' most recognizable goodwill ambassadors. Her interest in refugee work came after reading the script for her latest movie, Beyond Borders. Here is a look at the trailer for the film.
How did I get here? In another godforsaken country. Wanting to find you again. The truth is, I never really knew how it would end. The only thing I am sure of is how it began.
So are you married?
No men in my village want women over 18.
In my tribe, it's 30.
Welcome to Food Relief.
You've met Nick, who's our team leader and full-time doctor.
Is that perfume? You're wearing perfume in the middle of the desert.
Is there something you wanted?
We got about 10 days left.
What are you going to do when the food runs out?
Oh, we usually find a way.
Dr. Callahan, I presume? 25,000. Now you will do this, and you will do this right. And remember, I'm the guy that makes you possible.
You're not wearing perfume.
Are you gonna tell me where we're going?
Place near the border. What's the problem?
The boxers. They for who?
Don't throw those away. People's lives depend on them. I swear to God, I don't.
Did you know about the guns?
Thousands of kids die because I wouldn't bend the rules.
You don't have to transport guns to help people.
You do here.
I think you know he wasn't just a doctor anymore.
I'm worried that something's going to happen to you.
He said, you're a CIA agent. One of you must die.
I'm absolutely crazy about you. I'm not good for you.
You owe me, you took the money.
If anything happens to her...
And what?
Nick has disappeared. I want you to be safe. Go home.
I'm not leaving until I find him.
You're willing to risk your life for love.
I want to know where Nick is.
Pleased to have Angelina Jolie back at this table. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be back.
This movie came before or after your own sense of wanting to be involved in with the United Nations and in terms of relief work around the world?
The script came before. I read the script about 5 years ago and was moved by it, but knew very little about the world of relief workers and famine and the UN. But when the film didn't go, I was really upset, and I really wanted to go on the journey, and I wanted to understand what the content of the film was. So I got a lot of books and sat up one night, and actually a few nights, and then eventually called Washington and asked if I could just go, if I could travel with them, if they would allow me access to kind of witness the movement of refugees or camps or UN workers, if I could see it and if I could learn about the world. And they were gracious enough to let me go, and then later I did join the UN.
Well, you just traveled with them, you know, and went to observe, and mainly because you wanted to absorb, or because you wanted to somehow gather material to make a film, or to...
No, I never thought the film was going to come around, and I just personally felt that I started to notice from living in Europe, I started to notice that there was a lot on the news or a lot in different things that I just hadn't heard about. I just felt that I think there's a lot we're not taught in school. There was a lot, they didn't cover Pol Pot in my history books. I didn't properly understand what's been going on, in all these countries around the world, and how, how the majority of the world lives and really what's happening. And so I kind of learned best by being in an environment and wanted to just educate myself. I felt really blind to the real world. So.
And how did it change you?
It changed me completely. It changed me just to... I just realized how fortunate I was and how stupid I'd been for ever being self-destructive or wanting for more or not understanding how grateful I should be just that I know where my family is and they're alive and my child's healthy, and you know, we forget those things all the time, and just a sense of purpose and responsibility. You meet these people, you know, I go in for a few days, but there are these people that spend every day of their lives for years just helping other people, and are totally dedicated to it and love being around people like that. It's,
we have, most of us, certainly in America, most of us, have no sense of how the rest of the world,
no, we don't.
most of it, lives, or a good portion.
The majority of it.
And you wonder if, in fact, there was some sense, because, you know, I do have great faith in the instincts of people if they see with their own eyes and feel with their own heart. Then, you know, they're moved. You see it in 1,000 ways, and you see it primarily when there's some tragedy like 9/11, you know, that brings it to them, or you see it in the tragedy of a village far away where people, you know, fighting the most difficult things and having their children and their husbands wrenched away from them, and how they pull together, and, you know, out of instinct. For survival, and to be good, and to care, and to make a difference.
Absolutely, and I just think it's a shame that we're not kind of raised with this, you know, I wish it was mandatory for me to take other people's histories when I was in school, that I should have learned about great African heroes and great Asian heroes, and Europe and European history and leaders, not just my own history. You know, and I think that would just, I don't know, I think we should just be more aware of each other.
But it changes you in terms of conduct, how? In terms of
I'm still the same person. I just have such a, I have one, I think I was always quite lost in not having a sense of purpose. I think to be an actor is a nice thing, and you could tell good stories, but I think to know that you're useful just as a human being with your own hands, willing to, you know, just be out there with real people, talking to families, being amongst people like the people in aid relief who really are these amazing human beings, and learning about the world, and you know, it's just, if it's such a, you're useful, you're a part of real life, and it just, it's given me happiness, and I've learned more from refugees and about life and love and family than I ever did back home.
Did it influence your decision to adopt Maddox as a Cambodian? That influenced your decision to do that?
Yeah, I've always wanted to adopt.
Right.
My mom said since I was a kid, we don't know if I saw Annie and was very moved, or if I was just, I just always had the idea of adopting an orphan was very much in my mind. So I went to Cambodia.
But you somehow there was the choice to adopt an orphan rather than to have your own child, because you felt like you could do something different that way, or make a difference?
I feel like it's wonderful when people fall in love and have children. I feel personally like if I didn't adopt if I had a child, then Maddox would be where? In an orphanage somewhere. And that breaks my heart. I believe in finding your family across the world. I believe there are a lot of children out there. And so for those people that have, that blood doesn't matter to them, blood is not what makes family, I think it's great to be able to find each other across the world and become a big family.
Was it a struggle to get Maddox?
It wasn't easy, but I don't think it should be. I don't think in some cases it should be as difficult to adopt, because I think more people would if it was, it was a bit, but it was worth it. I mean, it was, you know, somebody said to me, you didn't have 9 months of being pregnant, so, you know, suddenly one day I went, it was in the middle of Beyond Borders, it was during the Africa section, it was...
That you got the call?
No, that I met him when he was 3 months old, but all the paperwork was done when he was 7 months, and so I was in the middle of shooting this movie, and went to the airport. They gave me the day off. I went to the airport, and a nurse handed me Maddox, and I went back to this rented house by myself, and I'd never been around kids my whole life.
You had no instruction? Nobody had...
No, I called my mom.
She said...
I just said, you know, do they, how many bottles a day? How many, you know, what do I do? How do you...
You had no help?
I did when I was on set, but I think I felt guilty about not having given birth and been there for the first 7 months, so I felt like I had to, you know, sweat and bleed a bit to earn some kind of parenthood, so I didn't have as much help as I probably should have had at the beginning, because I was falling asleep a lot on set, and I was a bit, maybe not the best mom even at times, because I was just not, you know, as good as I could have been. But the UN did it. I traveled first to Cambodia with the film, and then I went back twice with with UNHCR to visit with people who'd returned from the camps in Thailand.
Tell me how that role has evolved for you, and we'll come back to Beyond the Borders. How has that role evolved for you? Because you're now being honored because of the work you do, and a lot of attention's come to you because of this, because you're the visible expression of a commitment.
Well,
is it a significant portion of your life now?
It's a very big portion of my life.
Are you traveling around the world all the time now?
Yeah, every time I get to, I just recently, I finished a film and I went immediately to the border of Chechnya, Ingushetia, and spent time in Moscow, and then went back and got Maddox, and I went into Congo.
You took Maddox to Congo?
He stayed in Uganda because it wasn't safe for him in Congo.
Did you take him to the border of Chechnya?
No, he had to stay in London because he usually travels with me everywhere, but I was warned that because of the Chechen-Russian situation that it might not be safe for him.
On the border, what do you do when you go to the border? Do you look at refugees and try to make sure that...
I don't look, I do a few things. I mean, I've really tried to just... I never wanted to become a goodwill ambassador. That was never my intention.
Right.
I to travel with the UN for ask no press with me, and I just wanted to educate myself. And when they asked me, I was really happy to support them because I learned a lot about them, and I wanted people to know about the organization and to know positive things about refugees and how inspiring they are and how strong they are, and not all the negative things you hear. And so a lot of times I do keep journals and I do speak about it when I have a chance like this. But a lot of times in the field, it's just a lot of sitting with a family and asking them, where they've been, hearing their story, meeting with children and spending time with them and thinking their dreams and their hopes, and just being a friend, being somebody who represents my country and all countries in the United States, to say I'm here you're not forgotten, and people care, and we'd love to spend time with you, and you're human beings, and we are sorry you're going through this. If
you could be the stimulus for reasonable change, something that would be reasonable to do, I mean, obviously you'd love to be able to provide shelter and a job and security and a whole lot of other things, in an effort to return to their homeland, all of those kinds of things, and to live in peace, all that you would like to do. But what is the pressing need?
Well, I think awareness is so much of it, because it's, I was overwhelmed by the huge amount. There are 20 million people under the care of UNHCR right now. There's that many displaced people.
How many? 20
million. About half of those are children. That they're working in over 100 countries.
And living in camps, or living?
A lot of them are living in camps. Some are hidden in the borders of Colombia because of the dangers of being,
war.
Declaring things. They're hiding in different houses. They're hiding in shelters with no...
Right. Because of the...
It's all different. Obviously, in the Balkans, in certain areas, they're in gymnasiums. They're not in... It's all different.
But the need is for recognition,
it's going
and
to a
therefore...
place and saying, why did it become... how is it that there are 3 million people who have crossed this border? What's going on inside the country? When Afghanistan and Pakistan, suddenly everybody was aware of that situation. But months before, the Taliban had been in power for 7 years. For 20 years, people had been in camps. When there's instability in areas, it's like Congo or Colombia.
In some cases, they become pawns.
Why has it gone to this point where until it explodes in a huge human crisis, or there are people who are running for their lives, or their house has been burned, or they're being macheted in the middle of the Congo? Why does it have to get that bad for us to say, what's feeding this war? Or, if they're fighting for democracy, let's help them before they lose it. Let's try to do some prevention. Never to be preachy, but it's just that kind of thing where I'm walking around saying, well, how can there be this much death, or how can there be this much displacement, or how can there be this
And what's the answer
thing?
that you find?
Well, I want to know what causes it, and I'm starting to realize that, something funds. When you go to the Congo, for example, and you see there's gold and there's coltan and there's, which is the stuff in cell phones, and these little kids are being, forced to do manual labor to pull it out of the ground, and then they give it to militia guys, and then they give it to government officials that are corrupt, and then they sell it to big companies, who eventually it ends up in our phones. So we need to know who we're buying from. We need our countries to be really strong. That's one thing, because we obviously feed these wars, in some way. In some way, we're not responsible enough to know exactly what, and I'm not saying America, I'm saying everybody's, what our policies are in these other countries. And so it's not, well, it's exploded into war, now we have to send them military aid, because that's too late, really. So I don't know, that's what I've started to come to. I've started to really wonder about why it's, how is it that the world is so imbalanced, that we are the small percentage of people that are living with everything that we have.
All the resources we have.
Yeah.
And we saw the trailer from Beyond Borders. Tell me about the story and why it appeals to you and what we learn from it.
It is I've been pitching this for us, an epic love story, but it's
You've been pitching it as
well,
an epic love
people
story.
keep saying, "What is it about?" So it's about so many things. It is an epic love story, but it deals
An
with...
epic love story is one in which, how do you define an epic love story?
To me, it's a great love story because there are two people who, I think the greatest love is if you can find somebody that opens your eyes and makes you a better person and inspires you to do better things with your life, and that's a great love. Somebody that doesn't just accept you as you are, but helps you to and they do that for each other. They are, and they also have their heart in the same place. So they have similar goals and similar passions. And yet, because of responsibility to some things, they are not together for most of the movie. And
because of the commitment to something else.
Yeah, and I think that's responsible, and that's something that's good to be looked at in a film. But this film goes from Ethiopia in 1984 to the Thai-Cambodia border, late 80s, to Chechnya in 94, which is very interesting because those situations are in some ways different, in some ways not very different today. And just it deals with relief workers, the UN, corruption, famine, desperation of people, refugees, but also just friendships and love and all of that.
But at the core is a love story.
Well, I think in the core is about the choices we make, because the core really is, and I think for some people it'll be the love story. For some people it'll be the countries. It's really not one thing or the other, and really it's at the end of the day, you know, we have this opportunity to make a choice. Everybody watching this right now probably has something they think maybe they'd like to do, have always wanted to do, or something they left behind that they maybe think, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make the call, or I'm going to go to that place I've never gone to, or I'm going to decide to change my life for the better right now.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.